Welcome to Advisors Corner, where we interview subject matter experts, business consultants, and thought leaders. Today I'm interviewing Jim McGuinnis. Jim McGuinnis works for Intuit, has been working for Intuit for many years, and I will go ahead and ask him a few questions about his role and what he has been doing in the past couple of years. And I'll ask him some, let's call it insider information about Intuit's role in the small business marketplace and in the small business community. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you very much for having me, Hector.
Thank you. So if you don't mind just telling us real quick, what is your current role at Intuit? And maybe take us to how you got there and maybe some of the different roles you had within the company.
Absolutely. My current role as of September 6th is leading product management for the Pro Connect group, or our professional tax division here in Plano, Texas. Before that, just taking you through my journey, I had a colored storied career in consumer packaged goods, first in detergents, and then potato chips, orange juice, and video games. I joined Intuit 6 years ago to lead marketing for this same group, what was then the accountant's professional division, working for Jill Ward, if you remember her.
Yes.
So I did marketing for a few years, and then we split the divisions, letting the Pro Connect group focus more on the professional tax side of things, and I led what we called the accountant and advisor group, later the accountant segment. This is a lot of inside baseball, where we were really focused on helping launch QuickBooks Online Accountant and helping our accountants help their clients move to the cloud. Did that for, I guess, a little over 2 years. And as we have seen the success of that program and the opportunity, now we're interested in helping those accountants benefit from cloud-based online tax software. And so I've been brought back here to Plano, Texas, to help lead that initiative.
Thank you for that. And also, Jim, I know you know me as an accountant. I assume that's how you know me. However, in my particular profession, accounting is the boring portion of what we do, or the must-do portion of what we do. Some of us are much more passionate about the advisory, the services that we can give to small business owners and help them thrive. And a lot of accountants like myself have chosen to partner with companies like Intuit by using their software and their platform, because our true passion is helping the small business community and obviously the economies of the small business community. So if you don't mind me asking, what is Intuit's contribution to the small business community, or what's Intuit's overall strategy in getting involved with helping the small business economy?
That's a great question. How long have you been a pro advisor, Hector?
I've been a pro advisor since 2008, which is when I quit my job to have this job now. But yeah, it's been about 7 years, 8 years.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. It's a long time. We have some pro advisors who may be watching today who've been with us even longer. Your insight is exactly what we saw long before my time, which there were some folks who enjoyed and preferred to spend their time helping small businesses get set up on QuickBooks and, as you say, thrive in their small business. So we created the Pro Advisor program, almost 15 years ago now, which is designed to give the Pro Advisor all the tools, all the software, all the learning, training, certification, everything they need in order to help their small business clients thrive. Building on this a little bit, our mission is and has always been, for the 30-plus years we've been in business, to improve our customers' financial lives so profoundly they can't imagine going back to the old way. And every advisor, every accountant that I've met who works with small businesses shares that goal. They want to help their clients improve their financial lives so profoundly they can't imagine going back. So we're natural partners, and every day, everybody in our 7,000-plus employee company wakes up and focuses on what can we do to improve the financial lives of small businesses.
Perfect. Thank you for that answer. So I would like to get a little bit more understanding on how Intuit approaches their customers. Me personally, obviously, as an accountant, I am a customer of Intuit, but I am a different type of customer. Intuit has, I guess, multiple segments. I would like to get an idea of how Intuit looks at their customers, on how do they segment their customers, in which it changes the messaging, even the product, or the approach in which we educate and even serve those customers. So I'd like to kind of understand how Intuit segments those customers.
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, there are two very clear segments of customers. One is the consumer segment, and Intuit largely serves the consumer, helping them do taxes when they can and want to do it themselves with TurboTax. We also have Mint as an example of an offering against the consumer segment. Another and our largest and most important segment is the small business segment. We primarily serve the small business segment through our QuickBooks and QuickBooks Online offerings. Recently, we've launched QuickBooks Self-Employed, which is, we consider the self-employed to be part of the small business group, albeit they tend to be sole proprietors and smallers. There are two other segments that we talk about and spend a lot of time with, but I don't really think of them as customers. One is the developer segment. We work closely with third-party developers who help fill out our ecosystem and work with us to develop great software to benefit our other segments of consumers and small businesses. You know a lot of these, and I know you work with them, Hector, people like Bill.com, T-Sheets, Expensify, and others. The final segment, I'll be damned if I'm going to call them customers. They're accountants and advisors like yourself. I hope you don't feel like you're a customer of ours, Hector. I hope you feel like you're a partner. I know you've got a personal relationship with our CEO, Brad Smith. He recognizes you and often takes advice, and you and I have had a good relationship over the years as well. So 4 segments: small businesses, consumers, developers, and accountants. But I'd really frame developers and accountants as partners rather than customers.
That's interesting insight. Thank you for that. Yeah, I do consider you a friend. I think we've had some really interesting exchanges about how we look at the small business arena and software and all of that. And obviously, would love to bring Brad Smith here and ask him maybe some leadership questions. I mean, that your CEO is just an amazing leader. This is interesting. I'm curious about you're placing some importance on the developers, and Intuit itself is a software developer, right? So you are sort of quote unquote kind of rubbing elbows with your competitors, and maybe you can dig a little bit deeper. What is the importance of let's call it third-party developers to Intuit? And you mentioned the ecosystem, which I'll just in context for the non-accountant crowd here. The ecosystem is this web of software and applications that connect with each other in order to achieve a particular business goal, and almost always is tied to accounting somehow. So you tie in your email with your accounting, and then you use an app that connects your Gmail with your accounting, and maybe a software in between, like a CRM software. And that's what we call the ecosystem. It's multiple softwares kind of working at the same time to allow the end users, the customers, the accountants, any stakeholder in a small business operation to put their portion or put their part, and hopefully not do double entry, or hopefully allow somebody's input to affect somebody's output. And that's really the ecosystem as a whole. But why is the developer segment so important? Because Intuit is a developer themselves. So if you can elaborate on that a little bit, that would be great.
A great explanation of what an ecosystem is, Hector. Thank you. We throw that word around a lot, and I don't explain it as well as you just did. A funny thing happened in the past couple of years. We used to sell a money in, money out application on a shiny disk called QuickBooks. Today we call it QuickBooks Desktop. Now we're working to grow QuickBooks Online, which has many of the applications of QuickBooks Desktop, tracking money that's coming in and money out. But QuickBooks Online is much more than just an application. It's actually a platform, Hector, where we are able to connect and bring together data and applications from not only Intuit, but also the third-party developers that we enable. Brad Smith likes to say there's only two choices in the world. You either are an open platform or you're dead. And we take that to heart. Open means open, and we're absolutely open to work with developers who make software that in the past might have been considered directly competitive. We have our own payment network, but we work with PayPal and Square. We have our own payroll, but we work with several third-party payroll developers like Gusto. The way that I think about it is that we can never build well enough or fast enough in two dimensions. The first is deep verticality. Imagine if your small business clients had to wait for Intuit to develop a point of sale offering for a wine shop or a retail shop. There are other people who have more passion, better understanding, and can do that a lot faster. Far better for us to connect with them and work with them than compete with them. The other is depth horizontally, if that can be an expression. You know, people like T-Sheets and Bill.com, they don't manage just one vertical, but they do something very, very well, managing time and billing or receivables. And while we have some of those capabilities in QuickBooks, we would never invest in building it out to the great depth and capabilities that third-party partners can. So suddenly QuickBooks and QuickBooks Online ecosystem becomes so much better because it is a more right-for-me fit for each vertical, and the depth and capability across the applications within it is much better because we enable partners to do what they do best.
And often my clients ask me a non-technical, non-accountanese question to answer to that question. Hey, can you explain QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online and all the differences and the pros and the cons? And one of the ways obviously we're looking for really simple answers. Now, I have many clients that are sophisticated enough where I can talk about the technical specifications, but if most clients want that quick answer that drives them to make that better decision or that decision that ultimately serves them the best. But the concept I like to use is the concept of the phone or the iPhone and the apps. We all love our phone, but if our phone only had one app, which is the phone app, which is what the phone is supposed to be doing, we would be kind of bored with our phone because it's just sort of unifunctional. So the iPhone does phone calls really well, but it may not do other things very well, such as communicating with 50 million people, like a Facebook can, or vis-a-vis the Facebook app, which is the conduit to using your phone to connecting to Facebook. So I like to use that analogy a bit, saying, look, QuickBooks Online, it's kind of your iPhone, and the core functions of it are going to work really well. But there's so many other things out there, like a hyper vertical, like a wine shop point of sale system or anything else. And it's just easier for Intuit to say, you know what, here's a key to the back door. If you can figure out how to do this better, especially if you're working in an industry in which you understand the client better, you're going to be much more effective than we can, and for us to develop that. And I'm thinking, if Intuit wanted to say, you know what, Intuit, we're going to undertake every single vertical out there and create this monster of a tool that can do everything, your tool would have to be $300 a month, for you to be able to get your return on investment on all these developments. So I like the strategy of having a tool that's very inexpensive, between $15 to $40 a month, whatever the cost is, right? This is September of 2016. So if you hear this in the future, I don't know if prices will be different. But what I'm saying is that's the current price range offering, and then allow you sort of to customize that experience with other apps. Now, we're still very early in the game, I think. The QuickBooks Online product is not as mature as some of the desktop offerings, and not just QuickBooks Desktop, but we run into the same situation with Excel or something like that. There's hundreds of awesome Excel add-ons and Microsoft Outlook add-ons, and maybe not so many add-ons to Google Sheets or Gmail. And we need time, and I think that's a good strategy. Leave it open for developers to create those better experiences. So I think that we're still sort of getting there. I don't think we're we're in that perfect future, but I think we're riding the wave and we're moving along pretty well. That being said, Jim, I'd like to ask you a specific question about your experience working with Intuit and the strategy of executing working with our profession. So I want you to look back maybe 5 years and think about what has Intuit done really, really well to engage our profession and even improve our profession. And I may even dare to say affect it, kind of shape it. So what kind of things have you seen in the past 5 years that Intuit and yourself and your team have done to this accounting profession?
It's another fine question. Boy, I've been on a personal journey in the 6 years that I've been here at Intuit as I've worked with accountants. When I first joined, I was part of the professional tax group, and we really thought about accountants as customers. We thought about what could we sell to accountants. And we've got a great tax business. We create a lot of value with our Lacert and Pro Series businesses. But the amount of growth that we could generate through selling things to a, quite frankly, not a huge profession was fairly limited. About 3 years ago or so, we switched horses a little bit, and we started thinking about accountants more as people we could work with to help influence the small business segment. So there, we decided to give away QuickBooks Online Accountant for free. We decided to give a free instance of QBO to accountants. And from there, what we hope for is that they would recommend what they know, use, and love. And over time, that was pretty successful. Helping accountants recommend QuickBooks Online to their clients helped us grow in ways that we could never grow when we were just selling things directly to accountants. The third stage hit about 18 months ago or so, Hector, when a lot of advisors, such as yourself, came to us and said, you know, we buy the vision, we like where you're headed, but we don't know what we need to do. We don't know what steps we need to take. And quite frankly, we're scared because with all this time savings and technology that you're talking about, it doesn't feel like there's a very bright future for the profession. So we took a step back. We worked with some great thought leaders like Joe Woodard, Ron Baker, and others. And I can't claim that it was original thinking. It was a consolidation of a lot of the good work that the thought leaders had created over many years to synthesize down to a simple concept, the firm of the future, and give simple, step-by-step ideas and advice for free again to our advisor network on how they could advance their firm towards being a firm of the future. And we've done some really great stuff since then, Hector. First, being a firm of the future means getting online, and that for us means QuickBooks Online, but it also means the entire ecosystem, learning about these apps, figuring out which ones are right for your clients, and connecting them up. The second is let there be death to the billable hour. Whether it's fixed fee or value pricing, we believe that as the accountant continues to add more and more advisory value, to bill based on the number of hours it takes them to type in data is not a sustainable or scalable model. We intend to work to eliminate that kind of tedium and instead replace it with insights and data that will help the advisor give great advice. So first is get online. The second is be a trusted advisor. And then the third is really think about how you can grow your practice in this new environment. Many advisors that we work with are limited in their growth. They're working as many hours as they have. They're not scalable. They're spending all their time in tedium. They don't even have time to hire additional people. But when they adopt the technology, they adopt the billing models of trusted advisor, then they can open themselves up to the world in this new modern era of websites, social, and deep verticality to truly grow their practice. And I know you and many other pro advisors that I work with have seen phenomenal success in the last couple of years, really leaning forward into this new future. Final point is, at QuickBooks Connect coming up in October, we are going to announce the winners of our Firm of the Future contest. My belief is the William Gibson quote, which is the future's here, it just isn't evenly distributed. We know that there are some firms out there that are really ahead of us even in terms of best practices. we're working to identify those firms and celebrate them a little bit so that they can share their knowledge with the rest of the industry.
Oh, thank you for that so much. And that was kind of a loaded answer, so I'm gonna just kind of peel it back a little bit. Ron Baker, which is one of the persons that you named, was one of the authors of a book called The Firm of the Future, which I believe was part of the inspiration of this strategy. In the book, yeah, in the book,
we asked him for permission to use the name, and he was excited to lend it to us.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm a big fan of Ron Baker, by the way, and he's going to be in the podcast in a few episodes coming up. On the Firm of the Future, they kind of set the stage for a professional services firm, not just accounting. Of course, you work for Intuit. I'm an accountant. We're having this accountant jargon back and forth, but Firm of the Future talks about any sort of profession that is in the service of transferring knowledge or applying knowledge, where using the old factory model of charging by the hour and creating an entire business model around that, it's a little bit toxic to the end goal, which is having happy, satisfied clients and delivering results. So the book discusses a lot about making that mind shift change and also business model change to be value driven and results driven. So that drives me to the next question, which is this whole concept of trusted advisor. And trusted advisor is kind of a catch-all term that is used to sort of loosely describe, how professionals should have relationships with their clients and the role that they need to have, and the fact that they have to build trust, and the fact that small business owners mostly need decision support. They need, that person right next to them to say, "Yep, that sounds like a good idea," or "Yeah, let's walk through it. Let's do some pro and cons analysis. Let's calculate some numbers. Let's do some what if analysis." I mean, there's the trusted advisory is seen in so many different contexts. A trusted advisor could just simply be there to just agree with the client and give that person that peace of mind that, yep, that sounds like it's a good idea, and that just that peace of mind is worth something. Or sometimes the trusted advisor's role is to say, no, that's a bad idea, or in my professional opinion, that is a bad idea, or you're trying to get a really a small short-term benefit for potentially a real bad long-term risk, and obviously vice versa. So I'd like to ask you, what does this term trusted advisor mean to you? And in the past couple of years that we've been throwing it around, what have you learned about the best use of the term trusted advisor?
That's a fun one. Let me throw a new concept at you, see if you've heard of it. Have you ever heard of Centaur Chess, Hector?
Centaur Chess. No, chess, yes, but not Centaur.
So a centaur, I think, is half man, half horse in ancient mythology.
Right.
Not too long ago, IBM and Watson computers were able to beat the best human chess player.
Got it.
This is reflective of how advanced machines are becoming and how sophisticated they are in algorithms and using data and predictive analytics to figure out what are the best options out there. But here's something that a lot of people don't know. A human being assisted with a computer, i.e. half human, half computer, the centaur, can beat a computer chess player. Why is this? Because they're complementary. A human being, well, let me start with the computer side. A computer can manipulate data. It can look for mistakes. It can prevent inaccuracies. It's perfect for the plotting step-by-step, move-by-move part of chess, and it's ideal for managing data in financial environments. That's what we work on, is making QBO and the related applications better and better in moving, manipulating, and allowing people to gain value from the data. What a machine can't do, what a chess machine can't do, and what QuickBooks can't do is provide the long-term broad strategic vision of taking in the pattern recognition of everything around us. That's something only a human can do. So the very best advisory service that can be provided doesn't come from a machine. And today it doesn't come from an accountant who's disconnected. It comes from an accountant who has at their fingertips, or an advisor at their fingertips, all the data and all the power of computer assistance. So you ask where I see the future of trusted advisor and where it's working best. It works best when an accountant is combined with the advantages of an online ecosystem to give short and long-term advice, which simply can't be beaten either by a standalone advisor nor by a standalone DIY kind of approach. Another way I like to put it is I think a lot about the features that we can add to QuickBooks. The most important feature that we can add to QuickBooks for a small business client is an advisor.
Okay, yeah, great. I love that answer. Just to add some color commentary there, we typically do business or start a business to serve a human being at the end, right? So whether we create a product for a human being or we shape the landscape of where human beings live, or we do a service for a human being, at the end of the day, the ultimate benefactor of every business out there on earth, it is to serve a human being of some sort. So I think that computers that can replace, definitely can replace some of the mundane tasks and even some of the entire jobs of certain human beings. They will not completely replace that basic purpose of whatever business we're talking about, which is to serve that human being at the end. So no matter how perfect calculations and fast calculations a computer can make, they ultimately can't really see the person's satisfaction or see their smile or see their face of happiness whenever they receive the product or service that you receive. So no matter how much you think that computers can replace what we do, and don't get me wrong, they have replacing a lot of the stuff that we do, but they don't replace the human being. I don't think there'll ever be a business in which we sell to computers or we serve to computers, right? So I don't think a computer will ever be a customer. I hope. So, unless, you believe on this weird, dystopian future, but I think that there will always be a human being at the receiving end of anything that we create or do. So you will need another human being somewhere in the process to either create the service, deliver the service, create the product, or advise through the process. So I think that, yes, it's important to recognize that technology is changing how we look at professions and how we look at professional services and how we look at the things that before we basically just asked the person and the person gave us the answer and that's it. In today's world, most of the answers are in Google. I would say probably all of the answers are in Google. But how people feel about those answers, that only rests on somebody's brain and somebody's heart. So I think that personal relationship and that involvement of the human being in the advisory role is really, really important. And that's something that a lot of my colleagues and even other service professionals are afraid of what technology is doing to the professions. And my take is that is okay, as long as you understand it, as long as you can work alongside with it, as long as you can use technology as a better bridge between you and your client, not the wall between you and your client, the bridge. So if you say, I'm going to use technology so I don't have to talk to my client, well, that's probably a strategic problem in the long term. You got to use technology to better improve the communications with your client, whether or not that communication is written or voice or a webinar or a video call discussion or a podcast or a posting in Facebook. That really doesn't matter the form in which it takes. But that communication, I believe, is key. So thank you for sharing that. I just want to ask you a couple more questions before we wrap up here. Now, tell me about the future. Tell me, where do you see the small business environment changing in the next 5 to 10 years? And alongside of that, uh, any of the advisory professions. So whether it's accounting or business consulting or financial advice or even legal, where do you see professional services evolving and small business evolving in the next 5 or 10 years?
So, first of all, it follows a bit of the firm of the future discussion that I just had. I really see over that period of time, small businesses moving decidedly online. We're now over 1.5 million subscriptions for QuickBooks Online, which is phenomenal. The growth rate continues to accelerate. The benefits of anytime, anywhere, access to the data, social, mobile, all these things, the number of nodes that provide data just drive us to a place where I'm certain that all small businesses will be managing their small business online. Second thing is, I really think that the advisors will be moving into a more of a one-stop shop kind of approach for setting up and helping small business manage their practice. What you tend to see as things get more sophisticated is it drives specialization. And I think it will become increasingly, just as it's nearly impossible to maintain your own car today with all the computer systems underneath it, I think it will be increasingly hard for a small business to operate without the help of a trusted advisor. And I think they'll turn to that advisor to recommend and set them up on the right systems and back office software to help them thrive. So I really see that as a future. And then both for the accountants and for the small business, I see continued acceleration and verticalization. I think that today, if I need an accountant, I look for somebody in my same zip code. Maybe I try to run across them at a social event that the Small Business Administration throws together or something like that. In the future, if I'm a pizza parlor, I think I only want to work with an accountant who deeply understands the challenges of a pizza parlor. And in tomorrow's world, there likely will be one firm that will be renowned as being the very best firm for any given vertical. And I think they will be able to demonstrate their superiority in the advice that they give. They'll be able to market themselves online and be found wherever the customer, wherever the small business client is. And I'm not so sure that in 5 or 10 years the national boundaries will be as important either. Why a pizza parlor in the UK wouldn't get better advice from the best pizza parlor advisory service wherever it exists, rather than relying on somebody who just happens to be down the street in London. I think it's going to be cross-border and international.
That's interesting. I last month, about 2 months ago, I helped a client import data from PayPal and multiple shopping cart software, and this was a Hong Kong company. And while there was probably a few advisors in Hong Kong that knew what I needed to know, this person had seen articles that I've written and videos that I've done on the specific subject matter of importing data. And she contacted me saying, I know that I have to work at midnight whenever is noon your time, because it was exactly 12-hour difference. However, I just want to work with the best data importer that I can work with, and I believe that may be you. And you know what? That was very interesting for me, because I also ended up working at all hours of the night. But just knowing that my skill set goes beyond the country, and that it could be so profound as being able to work with somebody in Hong Kong, it was just very satisfactory for me to do that type of work. So I agree with you. It's the world is truly getting smaller. So thank you for that. So that being said, one of my questions was, what's the best advice that you can give to any professional in the business of advising small business owners?
Uh, Gosh, it's the same advice we take ourselves here at Intuit. Get to know your customer. Um, the more you show interest in, spend time with, and deeply understand what the client needs, the more successful you'll be. Understanding their objectives, giving advice on how to grow to somebody who just wants a lifestyle business isn't helpful. Um, the tax conditions and the drivers of success are so different industry by industry. To give generic advice on payables or receivables, it just isn't helpful anymore. Instead, deeply understand what their business, what their objectives are, deeply understand their industry and what the norms for that industry are, and come back with personalized advice that moves you and your firm of advisors from a commodity to truly a value-added service.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, what about to a small business owner themselves? You have millions and millions of small business owners as customers. What is the best advice you can give to any small business owner?
Get help from an advisor. 50% of small businesses, they go out of business, Hector, and it's not because they don't make great pizza or super cupcakes or something. Usually, they do well where their passion lies. The reason they fail is they run out of cash. They make poor investments. They make poor business decisions. They don't have somebody they can turn to and they can trust to help them with things like pricing and setting aside money for capital investments and even paying their taxes on time. So what we're passionate about here at Intuit, and I know you are with your clients, is we want them to succeed, and the best way we can help them succeed is give them what they can't do themselves, which is sound financial advice.
Perfect, thank you. So your advice to a small business owner is, this is your advice: find somebody that you trust to get more advice from. Correct?
That's right. That's absolutely right. Don't go it alone. Find just as the person in Hong Kong found the best. She needed somebody who was good at importing data. She found the best with you, Hector. That's wonderful, right? Isn't that wonderful to think about that? How much of her time could have been wasted, and how much data could have been lost if she went with somebody who didn't know what they're doing.
Sure, no, it's absolutely right. And the last thing I'll ask you, Jim, is Intuit a couple of years ago created this mega conference, this awesome mega conference, in which they decided to integrate all of their customer segments, right? The accountants, the small business owners, now big push for the self-employed crowd, because some of the statistics out there say that there's going to be so many million of people working on their own, freelancing, working from home, working remotely. Just the technology and the working conditions, and the price of gas and tolls and all that stuff. It doesn't warrant people to physically log themselves every single day to the standard workplace, and there's been so much of that transition into getting more and more people to working from home and being freelancers and being self-employed. So I know there's a huge market coming up for Intuit, and also the developers and the small business owners all under one roof. So give us a quick infomercial on that big conference coming up in October of 2016.
Absolutely. So it's the week of October 24th. It's in San Jose, California. It's our third annual QB Connect conference. You've been to the previous two, Hector, I think.
Yes, I have. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's it. It is amazing. I think if it were a standalone accounting conference, it would be one of the largest, if not the largest in the country. I think Accountex in the UK is larger, but that's probably about it. But it's not a standalone accounting show. We combine audiences from small businesses, self-employed developers, and accountants. It's called Connect because we bring those audiences together and watch the magic happen. We have some phenomenal speakers, people like Tony Hawk, We have the industry, the accounting and advisor industries, leading thinkers and thought leaders. Ron Baker will be there speaking. Wickersham will be there, Mark Wickersham, and many, many others. Hector, I don't think you have a speaking part there?
I can't go this year because my wife is due in a couple of weeks, so I'm gonna have to miss it this year, unfortunately. I do have a good
I shouldn't
excuse though.
have asked. You're killing me. That is a fantastic excuse. Congratulations to you. We'll raise a toast to you. We're really looking forward to it. There'll be wonderful main stage presentations, lots of CPE available. I think it's one of the best values in the industry as well. We really think about it as a way to touch and connect with all of the segments that we discussed earlier. As for me, I'm kicking it off with a keynote on Monday morning, bright and early, and I just can't wait.
Awesome, Jim. Thank you. And for the people watching and listening, it's www.quickbooksconnect.com. And check it out. It's definitely worth going, whether you're a small business owner, a lawyer, a service professional, a graphic designer, whatever. You go to that conference, you're going to love it. As a matter of fact, last year, I met a graphic designer. I was hanging out in one of the app booths. I forget which one it was, about reports. And the person asked a question about something about some type of report that they wanted. And me being as nosy as I am, I jumped in and I said, well, I happen to know the answer to that question. And I answered it, and we spoke for about 20 minutes. And I ended up from Miami, and he was in San Francisco, helping him with his QuickBooks. We only did one session, but it's just that the concept of traveling across the country and meeting with people that you wouldn't meet otherwise and potentially do some business there is just amazing. I love going to conferences, but this particular conference, QuickBooks Connect, is very special because it just goes beyond the vertical of accounting or whatever profession. Actually, most of your guest speakers, the celebrities, have nothing to do with accounting. You're going to have, I think it was Michael Phelps. And
that's right.
Right. so, and then you had Oprah last year, and and we had Magic Johnson the first year, I believe.
That's right.
So the conference is just really, really interesting. Jim, thank you very much for doing this interview. Thank you very much for the insight. Any last parting words?
No, I just can't wait to see as many of you as I can at QuickBooks Connect there in San Jose. And Hector, thank you so much for your many years of partnership. Hector's a member of our accountant council, and so we get lots of advice on our offering. As I mentioned before, he sends me emails and gives us thoughts about changes that we can or should be making. And it's just a pleasure to get to work with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Cheers.